Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into a really compelling source, Advantage India, a roadmap to national prosperity. It's by Dr. A.P.J. Abdul Kalam and Srijan Pal Singh. And, India, it's often described as this land of fascinating contrasts, ancient yet incredibly young, huge potential, but also, well, real challenges. So, our mission today is to unpack this vision, pull out the most impactful ideas, and really understand how they saw India turning its strengths into, real prosperity.
Yeah, and what's interesting right off the bat is that this isn't just some dry policy paper, not at all. The authors frame it as a direct call to action. And it's for every Indian, students, entrepreneurs, policymakers, everyone. They start by saying, look, India isn't seen as a third world nation anymore. It has real advantages, things like its massive young population, its democracy, its values. But then they hit you with this core question right at the start. Will we make it count? Their argument is that India is at this historical crossroads, the 2020s. They could be defining, or a missed opportunity. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does it take for a whole nation or even just a group to really grab a moment like that?
That's a powerful way to frame it. Absolutely. So, okay, let's unpack this vision. What's the first thing that really jumps out? For me, it's their focus on India's biggest strength.
Yeah,
This is where it gets really compelling. They don't just talk about population size, they zero in on the youth. We're talking over 500 million people under 25. They call it India's most significant asset, a human resource gold mine.
exactly. But, and this is key, it comes with a really strong warning. If this huge generation isn't empowered, isn't skilled up in the right way, well, that asset could become a massive liability. And Kalam wasn't just talking about, generic training. He pushed for this learning by doing approach. He envisioned these district-level innovation hubs, places where young people actually tackle local problems, using local resources, turning challenges into, like, real entrepreneurial chances right there in their own communities. It's less about just finding a job and more about actively creating the future, starting locally.
It's fascinating how they connect that human potential directly to creation. And that leads to one of the really sticky messages in the book, this idea of shifting. Shifting from just making things in India to India becoming a nation of, well, creators, innovators that move from made in India to made by India.
Absolutely. It's a crucial distinction. Not just assembly lines, but developing genuine homegrown technology. They really stress supporting startups from within India, cutting down reliance on imports, especially for the important stuff, defense, electronics, energy, the critical sectors. And zooming out a bit, Kalam really championed this design in India philosophy. So owning the intellectual property. The idea is right from the start. He talks about needing a culture where failure is seen as learning, especially for startups, and having the government actually buy innovative local solutions. That's how you build real self-reliance, not just making things, but creating them.
And they back this up, right? It's not just theory. They give actual examples of this Indian ingenuity, showing how people solve really complex problems, sometimes with, limited resources.
Oh, definitely. They tell stories. Like the Agni missile so important for India's strategic independence. Or the Kalam Raju stent. Remember that? It slashed the cost of heart surgery, made it accessible for millions who couldn't afford imported ones. These examples, they show breakthroughs coming from necessity, from a real drive to find Indian solutions for Indian issues. It makes you think, what did Kalam believe was needed, like culturally or policy-wise, to get more of that happening?
That's a great question. And I think the answer lies partly in the 5 big national missions they outline. These missions really form the backbone of their strategy. They all tie back to this idea of indigenous innovation and self-reliance. Let's maybe touch on each one. They feel pretty fundamental to the whole roadmap. Sure. First up is energy security.
Yeah.
And again, it's not just about big solar farms or nuclear plants. It's about creating this decentralized grid-to-village network, getting reliable power even to the most remote places. The idea is this fosters local economies and makes the whole system less vulnerable. Second is food security. And they push beyond just quantity. It's about nutritional quality too. So supporting farmers, yes, but also much better irrigation, modern storage, using tech to boost yields and cut waste.
Okay. Then number 3 is affordable healthcare. The focus there is really on expanding things like telemedicine and strengthening healthcare in rural areas, which is critical, plus embracing indigenous medicine, innovating there too, and developing low-cost diagnostics that everyone can actually access. Fourth, quality education, and they mean more than just basic literacy. It's about sparking curiosity, really improving teacher training, using technology smartly, especially to reach rural classrooms.
Right. And the 5th one is defense self-reliance. This ties back directly to what we were saying earlier. The book argues strongly that India needs to design and produce its own defense systems, not just assemble imported kits. Really embedding that design in India idea we mentioned, it's about securing the future through India's own brainpower and industry.
And what makes Advantage India different from, a lot of policy books is how it's filled with these stories, really inspiring stories of everyday Indians doing incredible things. It makes the whole vision feel much more grounded.
Totally. These aren't just abstract ideas. They're real people, real projects. Like the student in Jharkhand building a solar bike, or that village in Tamil Nadu running completely on wind power, and of course the ISRO team,
Yeah.
India's space agency. That Mars mission achieved at such an incredibly low cost. It really amazed everyone. What hits home is the message that big change doesn't have to be some massive top-down thing. It can be consistent, local, and just driven by people's passion.
Absolutely. And Kalam, being the visionary he was, really hammered home this point about leadership. He believed dreams are vital, but you need leaders at all levels, people who can inspire, yes, but also innovate and actually execute, get things done.
Yeah, and the way they define leadership is quite expansive. It's powerful. They say leadership is not about holding power, it's about igniting potential. That really changes how you think about it. So a teacher who gets a student genuinely curious, that's leadership. A village head, a sarpanch, who manages to bring solar lights to the community, that's leadership too. Or, a young programmer building an app that solves a real problem. Also leadership. It's about empowering initiative, wherever it comes from.
And it's crucial to point out, the book doesn't wear rose-tinted glasses. It confronts India's big, persistent challenges head-on. Things like poverty, corruption, the bureaucratic maze, caste issues, the gap between cities and villages.
You're right. They're very honest about those challenges. No sugarcoating. But importantly, the tone is never despairing. It's never hopeless. They're very clear. These challenges are real, but so is our ability to overcome them. It's about facing reality, but with this unwavering solution-focused optimism. Like Kalam often talked about using digital tools for transparency, like direct benefit transfers, to fight corruption. So it wasn't just wishful thinking. He believed technology and direct engagement could actually cut through some of those deep-rooted problems, specific actions.
And in thinking about the timeline, Dr. Kalam famously had that Vision 2020 goal for India becoming a developed nation, but this book came out in 2015, and they acknowledged, okay, huge strides were made, but the journey wasn't complete.
Exactly. So very pragmatically, they proposed a revised vision, an upgraded one, looking beyond 2020 towards 2022, 2030, and further. And the ambition evolves too. It's not just about smart cities anymore, but smart villages. Not just internet cables, but real digital empowerment for everyone.
Okay.
And not just being present on the world stage, but earning global respect through India's values and its contributions. It's about constantly refining the goal, keeping it ambitious and relevant for the future.
So wrapping this up, what's the big takeaway for you, the listener, and for India itself? I think in the final chapters, Advantage India really brings it home to this fundamental truth. Nations don't change just because of policies written down somewhere. Change happens when people get actively involved, engaged participation. They have this powerful line, we don't need to wait for a revolution, we are the revolution.
Yeah.
This deep dive feels like it's offered both, a toolkit for making change and also a real dose of motivation. Patriotism and purpose all rolled into one.
Yeah, it really encourages you listening right now to think beyond just feeling frustrated about problems. It nudges you to think about how you can actually be part of finding solutions. Ultimately, it highlights the huge, maybe often underestimated power that individuals and communities working together can have on where a nation is headed.
And that leads us perfectly to a final thought from this incredible deep dive, something for you to maybe mull over. It's this. India is not a land of a billion problems. It is a land of a billion possibilities, and those possibilities begin with you. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Advantage India. We really hope it's given you some valuable insights and maybe some inspiration too.